Long before the streets of Japan were lit by electric lamps, the silence of the night carried a different kind of warning. In quiet villages, people believed that not every sound belonged to the living. A rustling branch could be the wind. A distant footstep could be a traveler. But a whistle, drifting through the darkness just before dawn, was something else entirely. Parents warned their children never to answer it. Travelers hurried home before the first pale light touched the sky, and those who heard the whistle outside their window were told to remain perfectly still. Whether anyone truly knew who was calling was another story. For centuries, Japan has been home to countless tales of yokai and yurei. Some were mischievous spirits. Others were believed to be the restless souls of those who had died with grief, anger, or unfinished business. These stories were never just entertainment. They explained strange events, encouraged caution, and reminded people that the world held mysteries beyond human understanding. In many regions, nighttime itself was treated with deep respect. Walking alone through forests, mountain paths, or lonely roads after sunset was considered unwise. It was said that the boundary between the human world and the spirit world grew thinner as darkness settled over the land. Among these old beliefs was a simple warning that survived for generations. If someone whistled for you in the middle of the night, do not answer. No one could agree where the story first began. Some believed the whistle belonged to a lonely spirit searching for company. Others believed it was a wandering Yurei, unable to leave the place where it had suffered in life. There were even those who whispered that fox spirits, known as kitsune, could imitate human voices and whistles to lure curious travelers away from safe roads. The stories changed from village to village, but the warning remained the same. Never follow the sound. One old tale tells of a young woodcutter returning home after delivering firewood to a neighboring village. The evening had stretched longer than expected, and by the time he reached the forest path, the stars had already filled the sky. The journey was one he had walked countless times before. The trees were familiar. The stream beside the road flowed exactly where it always had. Then he heard it. A single clear whistle. It came from somewhere ahead. He stopped. Perhaps another traveler was waiting on the path. Perhaps someone needed help. The whistle came again. This time, it sounded closer. The young man stepped from the road and followed the sound into the trees. Branches brushed against his shoulders as the forest grew strangely quiet. Even the insects seemed to fall silent. Then the whistle came again. But now it was behind him. He turned quickly. Nothing. Only mist drifting between the trunks. Again the whistle sounded. This time to his left. Then ahead. Then somewhere far above, as though it floated through the branches themselves. No matter which direction he walked, the sound always stayed just beyond his reach. Hours seemed to pass. When the first light of morning finally reached the forest, the whistle stopped. The young woodcutter stumbled back onto the road, only a short distance from where he had first stepped into the trees. According to the old tale, he returned home safely, but he never again traveled after sunset, and whenever someone whistled at night, he quietly closed his door and waited for daylight. Whether the whistle belonged to a wandering spirit, a clever fox, or simply the imagination of a frightened traveler, no one could say. But the story spread. Soon children were taught never to whistle after dark. Travelers stayed on familiar paths. Families welcomed the sunrise with relief, believing that daylight belonged to people, while the night belonged to older things. Today, mysterious whistles in the night can usually be explained by birds, the wind, or distant voices carried farther than we expect. Yet the old warning has never completely disappeared. Even now, some people in Japan avoid whistling at night, believing it invites unwanted attention or bad fortune. Others smile at the tradition while quietly choosing not to test it. Perhaps that is the quiet power of folklore. These stories were never meant only to frighten us. They reminded people to respect the darkness, to stay close to those they loved, and to remember that not every mystery needed to be solved. And somewhere, just before dawn, when the world is at its quietest, it is easy to understand why a single distant whistle could become a story remembered for generations. Thank you for listening to When the World Whispered. Until our next story, keep wondering.